Well, hello everyone. Pleased to introduce ourselves. So Denise, Preece here with me. And we are going to be presenting our ideas about employability enhancement via reflective practice, alumni contributions, and PDP creation. And what I'm going to suggest is that this is obviously more of a workshop, and so that we will stop after each area and perhaps have a chance for discourse and asking questions and answering questions as we go along as well. So please do, get involved and think about how you want to ask questions relating to this. So what our work was based on is that we teach both on the undergraduate and the postgraduate side, and this award was won because we took our teaching from the postgraduate of HRM, MSc HRM, into a new module for the undergraduates, which is looking at transitional skills into an HRM career. And we were very aware that as academics, we are able to teach the hard skills, and we're good at that. We're very good at mastering and teaching that body of knowledge. But within HRM, because of all the controls, etc., and the protectionist nature of a lot of HRM aspects of involvement, we don't have the same access to the practice of those skills in the same way that we can. So, for instance, even going to a law court to hear a particular tribunal, access is limited, numbers are limited. That's the kind of example that we would love our students to do, but it's hard to actually put into practice. We also realised that the softer skills and the development of the intrapersonal skills were maybe needing to be developed more amongst our students, linked to employability. So we worked on the ideas of Pearson from their report back in 2011, thinking about the idea of those hard and those soft skills, thinking about how we can incorporate and enhance, particularly the areas where we felt there was more work to be done, which was the practice of our body of knowledge and also the soft skills. And part of the reason we did that is because we know from the research there's a real clear link between the development of character, the development of self, if you like, the personal attributes, which Kanash et al. Talk about, and also employability of the students. And getting onto these graduate schemes is getting increasingly more competitive, harder to do, and we really want to give our students the best possible opportunities that they can have within this world of work. And we knew that by incorporating this into a module, we'll be able to do that. So that was our starting point, really. And we want our students to become work ready, connecting, educating, inspiring, ultimately being actionable. And we've done this through those three areas. So I'll start by talking about the alumni contributions, and then Denise will talk further about reflection and PDP development. So our alumni involvement, there we are in the Brett building. We use that a lot for our CIPD talks, which is our institute, Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. And we invite our alumni to come and talk to those, so we keep in contact with them. And the module design was very much about this theory, research and practice interface, allowing Q&A and working with our very well-developed LinkedIn network. So we have purposely, over many years now, developed a LinkedIn network of our past students who we can then draw upon to help the current students. And we invite them in for talks, talk to our students. There's a two-way process here. And this enables us to really focus on contemporary issues. And I would say it keeps us up to date in the field as well, because HR is a very much evolving, changing field, as I'm sure you can be aware. And so recent talks have been about mental health, for instance, well-being, enhancing employee engagement when remote working. And there's a real sense of reciprocity that's built into this whole way that we've approached our involvement with our alumni. And I think that group head of HR quote there from one of our alumni shows really what she thinks, that the insight, comments and feedback provided by the students allow us to consider a different perspective and sense checks us to ensure that our HR practice is guided by theory and evidence base. So there's a real circularity about this, which we love, in that they come to give their expertise. We prepare our students theoretically before the individuals come to talk. So for instance, if we were talking about having a talk on mental health, we'd be looking at the theory of mental health, we'd be looking at what's been written in the articles, then the individual comes to talk, and our alumni group of them often come together, will then talk about their experiences within that field, and then the students question the individuals, and as a result of that questioning, so the alumni themselves are questioned, and that enables them to improve their practice. There's a real sense then of that helping with employability, because when a student then goes for an interview, they've got these resonant points, if you like. They can actually talk about the aspects that they've been involved in and what they've learnt within the field, if you like, from these talks from our alumni. So there's a real sense that it's on every single level. It is fantastic. So I'm going to give you some examples now to show you the kinds of ways that we do this. So Kira Scott just actually got a first class honours, just obviously in the last few days. So final year she was an undergraduate with us, and she's now continuing to a master's in HRM at the University of Liverpool. So I think that in itself speaks volumes, that she's done her undergraduate studies with us on 315. We've talked about postgraduate. We introduced as one of our talks everyone to the Director of Studies for the postgraduate MSc HRM, and she came to discuss the course, which was great. And I particularly like this bit here, that within her talk here, and this is her LinkedIn profile, and she's happy for us to share this, obviously she's agreed to this. I particularly enjoyed working with Heather Deering and Katie Winstanley. Now, Katie Winstanley was the one who came to talk, who's head of HR at the Mawson Group. This enabled me to have a real life hands-on experience in analysing HR in such a leader in the field, and has encouraged my postgrad application. Now, isn't that just wonderful? And then she can talk about any of her lecturers. She's had, I don't know how many lecturers during the time, but I'm pleased that both Denise and myself are mentioned there as two of her key lecturers who she thinks has made a big impact upon her studies. Fantastic story. And I think also with her, she was a student, as she's saying there, who was struggling, and she was saying, you know, that she was not someone with high, she had struggling with her financial income, low student finance, lots of challenges along the way, and she's come out with a first class honours, moving on to our postgrad. Fantastic success example. Another one is Lisa Chamberlain. There we are together on her graduation. She came from the Air Force, US Air Force, no less, did a BA in the States, and then came to do her MSc HRM with us at Liverpool. She was the student of the year, our student of the year, and she did the commencement address at the graduation. We're not surprised by this at all. We expect our students to do these things, and I think it's an example of the success of the programme, really, that we help to develop these students and their skills. She worked in Liverpool, was sponsored as an international international student, and sponsored by Fitness Factory. For 2 years, she worked there as their HR manager. And now she's back with us. She's studying her PhD with us. Again, no surprise. She's kept in contact with us. She's done talks, as you can see there. She did one of our CIPD talks. She's addressed our students, example there of her talking to our students. So a real sense of keeping in contact with her during those 2 years of experience. And I'm sure, well, I know she's an excellent student, but also, even more importantly, she's been teaching with us as one of our postgrads. She's been teaching with us on the course that we've been doing. So that's really exciting too. Now, I think from an employability enhancement perspective, I think it's important to say that we do invite people who are not alumni. So, for instance, the Chief Executive of CIPD, our institute, has come to talk to our students, as have a number of other directors from CIPD. But we found over the years that drawing in our alumni is the particular way that's different, because they can relate to our students. They understand theory. These are our postgraduate alumni who've been taught at a high level to think intellectually, and they're applying that when they're talking to our students. There's a real resonance here. And we purposely choose people from various different environments, and we sometimes ask them to bring other colleagues too. So, for instance, at the Wirral Council, one of our MSc HRM students, she's now works at Wirral Council, got on the graduate scheme there, and she brought along with her the Chief Executive. So that was a very interesting. One of the new starters alongside the Chief Executive, both giving their stories of working for Wirral Council. The Voltex example I'll just go through shortly. Mawson I touched on. Anderson, Nigeria, was a doctoral student who came back to the UK and for a short time, and whilst she was here, she came to talk to our students, so that we capture those students whenever we can, the ex-students whenever we can. I think in relation to Connect, what happens as a result of this very strong relationship that we have with these students, these alumni, is there's a, as I say, a circularity, but there's a real sense of linking it to employability. So if we think about the particular example of Voltex, you've probably never heard of them. They look after our money, our physical money. That remember that we used to use, our physical money, and they help to recirculate that into the environment. So that's the sort of nature of what they do, but a lot of it's very undercover. So you probably haven't heard of them as a company. Now, they've contributed by offering internships each year to our undergraduates and to our postgraduate students, and they've also come along, give alumni talks, and two are actually physically employed there, as you can see from that, so hiring our students. Sarah Magny-Ashton graduated with us in 2015. She's now Head of Culture and CSR at Voltex. She's on our Professional Institute Network Steering Committee. She's done a CIPD talk for us. So this whole connectivity has helped those two students, prize students, to be fully employed within Voltex. And each year she takes 3 to 4, I think it's four interns each year from various different countries, which again is fantastic. So this shows you our LinkedIn, and I think that what we are doing with LinkedIn is very important, because as you can see there, we have different profiles, obviously, different views. About 5,000 people were viewed what we said when we said we've won this award and relating to our teaching and experience relating to employability. And we had so many views there from different perspectives, academic, non-academic, practice. So this breadth of students and ex-students that we have upon the LinkedIn network, I think is a key component of our success with this. I'll move on to Denise now, because Denise is now going to talk about reflective practice. Or do you want a short talk about alumni first? What do you think is best? What would people prefer us to do? We can stop there if you want and discuss alumni and then move on to the other two areas. What do people prefer?
Any preferences? Anybody want to put a preference in the chat? I mean, I'm happy to go with it in the order that you think makes most sense.
We'll just carry on then, Kate.
Okay, so we'll carry on and then have the questions at the end, if that's all right. That's fine. Okay, yeah. That's great. Thank you.
So what Jen does is a lot of the alumni, and part of the alumni and the education side of it is looking at effective and efficient management and leadership, and effective and efficient leadership of self. So she will have done a lot of the theoretical side. I deliver the education side around reflection on self, your own ability, where you are, where you've come from, how that might have affected you, the voices you hear, those influences in your life to move them forward to where you aspire to be. So we weekly give them activities to do, and I'll show you some of the activities in a slide or two. But basically, we start off from who are the best voices, who are the most inspirational voices that you hear, and I get them to do a bucket list. What is it that they do that you want to do? So they do their own bucket list. Then I say, who are voices in your life that have been inspirational? Again, why? What is it that's about them that was so inspirational? And that adds to their bucket list. And then I get them to look at a job description that they would like now. I get them to look for a job description, so a real vacancies for 3 years and real vacancies for 5 years. And what that gives them is a 5-year, if you like, timeline. So I do a gap analysis of the 1 year. Where are you now and what do you want to be? I get them to do a gap analysis of 3 years. Where are you now and what do you need to do in the next 3 years? And then we do the same for 5 years. And what that does, it gives them a very clear plan, a personal development plan of what they need to do. Alongside that, once they've done that piece of work, I get them to immediately looking at that 1 year job, bring it back to jobs that are out there now. And I'll say, right, do a gap analysis, what's on that job to what your CV says. And they'll come back with the CV usually is very, very functional, very factual. And then we start exploring, well, what are they asking for? What skills, what attributes, what experiences have they had so far? What education have they had so far? And we start managing that gap analysis so they've got a much more robust story to tell. So we do this enhanced CV building with them, specifically aligned to at least one job. I tend to ask them ideally to get 3, because the plan is over the time they're with us, I like them to have actually had an interview. So got shortlisted and had an interview as well. So that's the plan. So yeah, so I've tried to encapsulate that inspiring them into this picture here. So this is us sat back, long term, what's on the other side of the lake, where do you want to go? Okay, this is the mind is what is it full of? What messages are you hearing? What's going on? The 2 forests, one is the very dense, you're right in the middle of your studies, you're really struggling to see literally more than 10 meters away. And what I do is do that trying to remove that 10 meters picture and give them that longer term so they can see through the trees, they can see the career. And that links back to what Jen will have done with them about the different people they've had in front of them, the different careers our past alumni have been. And then I do this, who is in your shadow, who's created your shadow, and who are the people you want to actually be your shadow, who do you want to follow in your career? And that's that series of activities. I say I do guided activities. We'll do an activity and then I do a personal reflection. So what have you learned about this, about you today, and what do you want to change? That picture of lots of cars on that journey is that we're all on this journey, and Jen has just mentioned, you know, we have past alumni coming in, we're there, we're all learning together. Quite often with the alumni, in the past I've done pictures of, they presented a problem and we've tried to make sense of a scenario problem that's real time for that practitioner to go away and solve. So this is this butterfly, so it's come from a catalyst into a butterfly, recognizing that they quite often feel like the duckling. And they recognise that pair of boots it is sometimes a real hard journey. Sometimes they've been on their own and you can see several feet. Sometimes they've been in a team. And we try to, as much as we can, get them to think of themselves as a body of knowledge, a grouping of people. And what we found is our alumni now keep in touch with each other as well. So it's a real community. Specifically, I think it's that Liverpool community quite often as well. So it links them back to university. And that's why we link it to the professional network at Liverpool as well. So if you move forward, Jen. So there's some of the actual weekly activities. I've listed 8 there for you now. So I've done that career analysis piece I talked about. I walk them through a Bell bin and an Myers-Briggs portfolio and get them to understand self and other. We do some work around unconscious bias awareness, and they can each choose an area that they feel they want to explore further. We look at our professional map as well and say, actually, what does the profession say you need to do at different levels, and where are you fitting? So they understand how they fit in their career portfolio, but also their hierarchy of their career. Specifically, I'll get them to do some skills assessment and development as well. Usually we're used in LinkedIn Learning, something similar, where they go and develop, enhance something that they feel is a gap, again, to give them confidence and competence in an area. I think the CV building has been really, really good for them because it's tailored to the profession that they want to go. It's not always HR, to be honest, on this module. There is different people coming from different areas, so we get that tailored view of a CV. And ultimately, what we do almost to start with is get them this LinkedIn profile. So we start them from day one, and then we keep adding. So everybody who comes in, every alumni, they get them to link in. We get them to link in with us, and keep filling that CV, if you like. And we make it quite clear, you know, when you go for an interview, quite often they will check to see what you look like on LinkedIn. So whatever you say you've done, you need an evidence base of that. So we do a lot of that building, profile building, networking. And as I mentioned, ideally what we want is them to actually have gone through a couple of interviews. It doesn't always mean they get the job, but it does mean that they will have interview experience. They can come back. We've got them in groups of 5 and 6 where they can talk. They've got us on standby as well. And I was talking to Jen, at the end of this, so this is right in the middle of COVID, semester 1, nobody thought they were taking jobs, people getting workplace. We got 90% employability. And the others that didn't get that employability actually went on to do further education. So they put themselves onto different master's programs. And this is where, for me, this action able. They're ready to do something. They feel like they have efficacy. They feel like they have an identity agency. And I think this is us getting them to see their best selves over this period of time that they're with us. And this is just some of their quotes. This module has really assisted in bridging the gap between academic study and actually employability. I found the module different from any other at university, in that it actually boosted my employability and focused on practical skills that helped me to get a graduate job. And the next slide, Jen. Jen? Thanks. So here's the framework we've talked about. So it's educate, connect and inspire. So that's why we run it in almost parallel. Jen's doing the whole connect. I'm doing the inspire, and then we're both together pulling the education bit around practice knowledge, but also personal knowledge as well. And that's where we turn it into something actionable. So ultimately, they're leaving with a professional profile, they're leaving with a CV. Quite often we've talked about interview, and at the end of most alumni sessions, there's an open discussion about how did you get your first job? What was it like? What would you like us to, what takeaways can we have from it? We give them a toolkit. So again, we get them using LinkedIn Learning and things like that. So even when they leave the university, they have self-help tools if they want to expand or grow themselves. And ideally, again, as I mentioned, they've had these interviews, and I think that is a real breakthrough, and it gives them the confidence once they've had one or two to go forward. But what we're doing is, instead of them applying for 30 jobs, we're getting them to apply for the 5 or 6 most appropriate jobs for what they really want to do. And I think that refining in their mind, that's removed, that journey I said, when there was, instead of it being 10 meters, they can actually see long distance. I think that really helps, because they're focusing a lot of effort and energy into quite a specific area, and they can see themselves literally transition from student to someone in the workplace. And the next slide, Jen. So I've put some of the pedagogical design there. I'm not going to go over it now. It's just in case there's any academics who want to talk about how I structured and developed and designed the different parts to fit together so it builds and makes sense. But that's the pedagogy that's sat there. And again, just going back, both Jen and I have done this now for 7-10 years, so we're quite skilled in doing it and developing that. And Jen, this comes back to how we connect them and how they see us. Jen, do you want to go over this slide?
Yes, thank you, Denise. Yeah, I think what what they say is really quite important here. That they're, Katie Milett, for instance, she comes and talks, or she works for Guinness, and she said both deserve the award. The fact that they're taking time to congratulate us, I think, says the almost symbiotic relationship. We've got a very good relationship with our alumni, and they celebrate in our success as we celebrate in their success as well. And I think LinkedIn has proved itself to be an excellent tool for us to constantly have that involvement in their lives, and again, similarly, them in our lives as well. So that's the end of our talk. We're very happy now to take questions and to take that forward. Thank you.
So if anybody would like to ask questions, you can either just put your mic on and ask them, or you can stick them in the chat. Or if you've got comments on what you've heard and you'd like to feed that back. Yes, Moira.
First of all, I agree. I can see why you won the award. Excellent. Really, really great work. I'm very interested in what you're doing, and I can recognize elements that we are attempting to do and bring on with the undergraduate students as well. Just a question on terms of numbers and engagement with this? What sort of numbers are we talking about?
Well, we've done it for the postgrads, and the postgraduate side, we'll have had 175 students on that last year, for instance, international and national. But this specific, when we're starting this is 315, we have about 40 students on that. It's an optional module for undergraduates. But it is a scalable model. I mean, you know, as long as you, because Denise will tell you, she ran this in teams, and within teams, she had these really wonderful groups of students working together collaboratively. So as long as you have lecturer time, it can be incorporated into any size of module, I'd say. Wouldn't you, Denise? Mm.
I'd agree, Jen. I think what they really liked is that smaller groups, is the more, you know, so it's not overwhelming. It's 4 or 5, 6 maximum talking about this. We spent a lot of time in teams where they were developing their portfolios. They give them individual space where they can actually write about this. And just the sense making, because the other thing you can't do is rush it. That 12 weeks was a full 12 weeks. You know, ideally, if we had a choice, I'd probably move it into semester 2, because you'd have the Easter break. But what we did find is, as soon as they started applying for jobs, that calmed them down anyway, because they felt like they were actually moving across. And you know, the timing is everything. If they left it till semester 2, would it be getting too stressed? They know they need a job. It becomes very functional as opposed to immersive and reflective.
Yeah. I completely agree. I work with Chris Barlow in the management school on the OMS 170 placement preparation module, and that originally was run in semester 2 of first year, undergraduates first year, but then they all felt too much pressure. It was too close to second year, when they should, in a sense, have almost had those wheels already turning in preparation for their placement applications. And so we moved it sorry, it was in semester 1 of second year, and we moved it to semester 2 of first year, so that they were hitting, I hate that phrase, but hitting the ground running in second year, knowing that little bit more. I'm very interested in the sort of the reflective side of it, and training, teaching, encouraging our students to become more reflexive. Very interested in that and building that in. But a lot of the work that we're trying to do with the management school is about embedding employability, and so this is a fantastic example of that. Like I say, I can see why you won the award, and I love the idea of all of the images as well, and that, you know, help. I'm presuming you actually use those images. I'm not just, it's not just created for this presentation.
No, we've used imagery and metaphor. We were strong on metaphor as well.
Yeah.
And that worked really well.
Yeah, just thinking about, you know, how different students learn differently and take on board information differently, and then how to help them to understand their journey. I really liked that. Yeah, lots of food for thought, and you know, hints and tips as to how I can improve some of the sessions that we're working on with the, obviously we work more with the undergraduates. So do you two work with the postgrad careers team, so Jan and Sadie and those, or are you?
We would tend to bring them in. We have done when we were actually physically face to face. We brought them in to the talks. But what we've been talking about there, though, that was an undergraduate module. So what we've been discussing in a lot of detail was the 315, which is an undergraduate final year module. But we've brought that across from postgrad. The way we've been working there has been on the same on the postgraduate side in 550, and that was a scaffolding module for 150 plus HRM students.
Right. Okay.
I mean, one of the things that Jen and I have talked about, so the postgrad was over the full 2 semesters, semester 1 and 2, and that was 30 credits. And sometimes I almost think we give them so much as on the undergrad for only 15 credits, because they are doing a huge piece of work here on personal effectiveness, personal efficacy, and I think it's sometimes not necessarily reflected in the credits they're getting, because they are transforming in so many skill sets.
Yeah, I think it's that notion of journey traveled. I'm always very interested in that. You know, everybody's starting point is different, and how we can capture that is really important, I think.
And it's the individual side. I think because they're working towards developing their personal development plan, it enables them to start thinking about their strengths and their areas for development, and to be honest, their limitations as well, and being honest with self. And that's really great preparation for job interviews. So within the development of character, development of self, that's what you're needing to know when you're going to a team situation. You're having to perform in a team. So we're really stretching that idea of self. In the context of becoming an HR professional or becoming a professional in working life. And I think one of the talks before was about, people say, well, there's got to be some worth, there's got to be some value in this. We can absolutely demonstrate value in this particular module because it's about self, which they can take for the rest of their life. They'll understand character and self is a great starting point if they haven't done so already. But also anyone seeking a job needs to have done an element of, well, I would say a lot of this degree of reflection and ideally reflexivity to understand themselves in more detail and depth.
Yeah, I'm always I'm always sort of going on about these are skills for life. I'm like, the crazy aunt in the corner, going, these are life skills we're talking about.
Definitely.
I'm
what
sorry.
I would say though, I was going to say, having lecturers on the end of the line who understand employability and skills in employment, I think it is helpful as well, don't you, Jen? I think it gives them that confidence to ask the questions sometimes that they're uncomfortable with. Having alumni there that are more their age, more look like them, sound like them, much closer in experience to them, and asking them questions at the right time when they're ready, again, is immeasurable. Sometimes it's just for reaffirming, yes, I was there, yes, I know it's a struggle, yes, I know you have a wobble at them in the middle of the night, but just keep going. Yes, you've got no at the moment there's no experience, go and get some unpaid experience. Just, it's almost giving them permission to say, you might not get the job of your dreams tomorrow, but this is some stepping stones. And you know what, sometimes you have to do unpaid work, and sometimes you have to do a week here, 3 weeks there, because that's what builds the experience and exposure. And I think, what do you think, Jen, on that when they're having them chats with the alumni?
Yeah, I think I particularly liked that Wirral Council one, because we had someone who's a recent graduate who was the age and stage of many of our undergraduates, at this point they were postgraduate, sorry, age and stage of them, and then also the chief executive, and having those two different perspectives. One who was worried about the strategy of the organisation, and COVID was starting to just emerge at that point in time when he was speaking, and then another brand new on her career journey and talking about how she prepared herself. And also what we find is that they thank Denise and I for the work that we've done. So they said, we can tell you, you won't necessarily like this module every stage of it, and you will find it difficult, but by the end, wow, you'll look back and you'll say, thank goodness we've done that, because it's increased and enhanced our employability. So they're almost our sales force as well, aren't they, Denise? In that they are saying this is important, and you might not quite understand why until you've completed it. At the end, then retrospectively, you'll understand about this particular course and the value of it. Chris, is there anything you want to ask at all? So I just wondering whether Chris wanted to have any questions at all as well.
I'm somewhat of a silent observer. So
silent observer, that's absolutely fine, no problem.
I mean, we have our third year BSc projects, and we have a highly watered down version of what you have. It's very basic in comparison. I think there's some really nice ideas in the talk that you presented. I think I will look through it again and see if I can incorporate some of that into my own teaching. Yeah. But also, I should say we've got some great help from the careers service, but I guess from the science team.
Yeah, and I suppose both Denise and I have come from non-academic backgrounds. So before moving into academia, we'd had life in that real world. And I think that really helps the students too, that the management school has people who've perhaps got different experiences. And I would say, I would step out a bit and say, I think all academics should have some non-academic experience, because I think it does enhance our knowledge and expertise about what the real world of work looks like and needs from these students. And also we've got, you know, we've got kids of our own, and we've seen them as they're applying for universities, and mine as they're applying for jobs, and we're therefore aware of what the standard is. I mean, to get into even a summer internship, Moira, which just has shocked me actually, the absolute amazing competition that's out there. And so we want our students to be amongst the best in the world, obviously, to apply for these jobs. Yeah.
Definitely, and I mean, this is why we're trying to encourage our students, all of our students, not just management school students, but to start that sort of start their thinking, their career planning is probably in first year is probably a little bit too formal for it, but even to just start that thinking in first year, because they need all of those, as you say, for even those summer internships between first and second year. The process is very often just almost identical to, you know, a year placement, or, you know, an elements of the graduate role. So,
but also that can circumvent graduate scheme applications.
Exactly.
So some of these summer internships, what I'm aware of, in week 7 of a 9 or a 10-week internship, they'll be interviewed, and if they pass that interview, they'll go on the graduate program. And isn't that fantastic? So you start your final year then, but that preparation needs to start in year 1, the thinking, the processes, because you're applying in year 2, and you need to have this readiness. So there's a lot of work to be done here, and even as I'm talking more, I'm thinking we could take this to year 1 and start and do some work with our real raw undergrads as well.
2 hands up for that. Yes. I'm loving it. This is the great thing, isn't it? Isn't it really about conferences and just connecting people in ways like this? Kate's smiling away there, just going, yes.
I'm absolutely loving it. My background for a long time was higher education, careers education. So it was lots of this stuff for a very long time, and we were desperate to get it in the curriculum. And so I am always thrilled to see examples like this, which are amazing.
Yeah.
And I think Chris, the sort of a takeaway for you might be to start considering your alumni a bit. You might do this already, but a very quick and easy way is to start inviting a few of them to come and talk to the students within modules. And you know, perhaps you're talking about a specific area of physics, and you want to bring them in to discuss that from a practical application angle. Bring them in for guest talks, guest speaking, etc. Engages students and helps them to start forming their ideas about their future careers too, I think. Yeah.
I think it's a really great idea. Yeah. I think it's very difficult to know at that stage of your undergraduate degree just what it's going to be like, isn't it, as you graduate?
Chris, the other assurance we can give you as well is when we bring people back, they probably feel they get as much from it as they're giving. And they really, really value some of what you think is a simple question or stating the obvious. They really like that. They also feel that link to Liverpool. They like coming back and giving something back in, and because it's that pay forward. And I would say right now, since we've been using Zoom, it's been so much easier for alumni because they haven't got to travel in, find parking, take a whole half day. They're there on the end of
and we find it hard to get parking. The chief executive managed to get a parking space. That was quite an easy one, but when we're having our average alumni speaking, it is sometimes difficult to get some of the basic things sorted. So yes, that's a good one, Denise.
So I did ask some of the students, some of the alumni, to create videos last year, you know, for the undergraduates to see, but it misses that interactivity. I think it'd be much better to have them in person. So
well, they ask questions. And as I say, it also is leading to jobs, Chris. So the other thing it's doing, it's not our job to find them jobs. Obviously, our job is to educate them. But I do think, I think building employability and helping them to gain their graduate jobs, I do think it's part of every single academic's job. But they need to learn to do it. This isn't something that's natural, that comes natural. So Denise has worked in financial services. I worked in the recruitment industry. I know recruitment very well. So I've come with a lot of pre-knowledge, if you like, of this area. So that, in its sense, I think has helped. But I think we need to be helping our academics to learn how to enhance employability amongst our students. That's a bigger issue, Kate. That's more over to you, I think, than us. But you know, starting thinking, if you develop these relationships with our alumni, then they might employ our students. And we can give so many examples of that having happened. They might have internships, which makes our students more employable. Again, that's worked incredibly well. And we have companies now that come to us saying, we want to hire from you. That's great. That's what we want. We want Liverpool students to be at the forefront of their minds and their first point of call. But that's taken time to get there. So I don't think you'd get there overnight, but you might find that you start developing those relationships and it's a slow burn, or you might strike lucky and get some jobs straight away for the students. Brilliant.